This is always something I have to double check is actually happening. Let's see if we are actually live. Ooh, okay. Let's see. Are we actually live? We are. We are live. Hi, everybody. We are live with audio. Good. I actually have my microphone plugged in this time. That's a classic thing I forget to do sometimes. Hi, you all. Here we are. How can I make this bigger so I can see more? Hello. So we are doing. I'm a little sad. This is our last live stream that is associated with the Kickstarter. The Western Reaches Kickstarter is already coming to a close. It's been an absolutely mind-boggling month of Kickstarter stuff, and we've had a lot of streams and cool stuff going on. I can't believe we're already on our last one, so we'll try to make it a good one. Yes. Greetings from Denmark, Knoxville. I thought I saw Baron Drop in the chat. Did I see Baron Drop in the chat, my pal? I don't know. Let's see if he's here. Awesome. Okay. So, what have we got? We've got UK with Wyvern. It's always good to see you, Wyvern. Hello. Everybody, we are. Oh, thank you on the 2 million. That's just crazy, right? I just can't believe that we're there. It's still hard. I still haven't processed it. I've been trying to stay so busy with all the fun stuff we're doing. I just haven't even sat down and been like, wow, that really happened. So Florida. Oh, wow, people from everywhere. I'm so glad we have such a wide range of people attending these. And I hope that the timing on these, like I said, on the weekend being a Sunday and noon is like palatable-ish all around the globe. I don't know for sure, but we try. We try to make it not super late, but not super early for as many as possible. So anyhow, today, designing the Necromancer. Oh my gosh, you guys chose a tough one. Necromancers are really, really challenging for a few reasons because they are spellcasters first and foremost. That's always harder to design. We've never designed a spellcaster live on stream. And I guess I'll caveat our stream here by saying we will design for as long as I can go without it being silly. You know, I know people have to eat and stuff, but it's unlikely that we'll be able to finish an entire spellcaster in one sitting, simply because it's challenging to design every single spell out to the right coordinated, self-referential balance in one go. So we're going to try. The best thing I think that we can take away from this too is having at least a concept or a framework for the majority of the spells that we want to make and a strong direction and identity for who the Necromancer will be in our game world. I'm already seeing, I just want bone armor. You know, there could be some form of buff spell. So here's the thing too. I always talk about where I'm drawing my design influence from. And, you know, some of you might be familiar with the concept of an Appendix N, which was actually one of the appendices in AD&D First Edition. And Appendix N is beloved by many because it is where Gary Gygax listed all of his literary references for where he was pulling his inspiration from as he was designing AD&D. And there's really, really awesome stories listed there, you know, and a lot of people are often surprised to know that, for instance, The Lord of the Rings was not a strongly cited influence. I believe it's in Appendix N. But Gary Gygax himself said that sword and sorcery fiction and sort of the fantasy fiction of the pulp era was really much more influential to him. I'm going to turn my microphone slightly toward my mic. Is this a little bit louder? Slightly, it was, you know, sword and sorcery fiction like Clark Ashton Smith and Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft and plenty of others are cited. And so I also have my own Appendix N of influences that I've collected over time. And so designing to that precedent is something I think keeps things true to yourself, true to your own, the things that you hold dear when you're designing. So I'd recommend that everybody to start to develop their own Appendix N. And I want to share some of mine with you guys where we're going to be pulling influence from for the Necromancer. So first and foremost, like my favorite book ever by Garth Nix, Sabriel. Check it out. She is a necromancer. She is the coolest necromancer I've ever read about. She uses magical bells. There are 9 that each have a more powerful effect. You see, she's standing in the river of death. She's actually standing in the river of death. And she is facing down a very difficult greater undead called a mordicant right here. Or it's possible that this isn't a mordicant, but I've always thought it was one. It could also be like one of the main enemies. But she is so cool. Notice some things about her. She's holding a sword. She's wearing chain. She is not evil and corrupt looking, right? She's not some kind of evil. She's actually a good necromancer. Her purpose is to put down the dead. And this is one of my favorite. It's just so cool. Her belt. Look how cool the thing on her belt. She comes from a lineage of necromancers, a hereditary lineage where her father came before her and taught her to be the necromancer who puts down the dead. And she fights against corrupt necromancers who abuse the powers of necromancy. It is her task to guard the land of the dead and to make sure that the dead can pass on safely and peacefully into what is supposed to be their afterlife. So I think it's so cool because she does all the stuff that a necromancer does, but doesn't like try to raise and control the undead, because that is seen as an abomination to her and a corruption of magic, and it ends up corrupting the necromancers who use it such that they become nearly undead or vile in nature. So she's like my favorite depiction in fiction of all time of a necromancer. So I think we're going to have to take that into account. The other place in fiction that I have seen necromancers or the wizardly ability to engage with the dead in the afterlife is the Wizard of Earthsea series. This is a fantastic, fantastic series written by Ursula K. Le Guin, published in the 70s, I believe. And the main character, Ged, is a wizard who ends up walking in death when he should not have done, and sparking some of and calling upon dead spirits and sparking off the premise of this first story. So some things that these two books have in common. These two books share something interesting. It's the idea that water separates the land of the living and the dead, or is a strong part of it. In Sabriel's case, she can walk in the river of death by actually leaving her body. So she kind of like exits her body, leaving it sort of unguarded, and can walk in the realm of death. And in the Wizard of Earthsea, if you go far enough across the sea, you will eventually come to the land of the dead, or you can enter it doing wizardly magic. But in all cases, it's dangerous to walk in these places, and if you are not careful, you can become lost in them or overtaken by them. And so half the battle of these necromantic arts is knowing or having a strong enough force of will that you can resist the pull of the land of the dead. And Wonderland 65 is pointing out some cool stuff too, like in Sabriel, she uses bells, and there are 9 bells that are each keyed towards godlike figures, who each have a different magical effect, and all necromancers use them. But she is the only kind of necromancer who uses bells that do not have a corrupt nature to them. They're sort of hallowed by organized magic called the Charter. And so she does not use chaotic magic. She uses charter magic, which is organized magic, whereas chaotic magic is called free magic, and it's like a disorganized, corrupting, and eroding type magic. So I think that it's just so cool how how these necromancers are depicted. And so I'm bringing this all around to say there are 2 types of necromancers in this world. There is the MMO necromancer, and there's nothing wrong with the MMO necromancer, but they're I'm going to raise 1,000 skeletons and send them at my enemies, and I am just basically evil, or evil appearing. And those are cool. Like, people love those. I think they're in Diablo. They're in every MMO. They appear readily in lots of versions of D&D. But they've been done a lot, and I almost don't want to retread territory that's already been done. I want to make a necromancer that aligns with my own Appendix N, and see if you guys can help bring these ideas to life with your own insights and your own responses to what I'm throwing out there. So, let's see how we can do it. And that will bring us then to a little bit of some baseline design for the Necromancer. Now, again, I will remind you, look at this, look at what she's wearing, look what she can do. Does she look like a wizard to you, or does she look more like a priest? And I think she looks more like a priest, because Sabriel can fight. She's actually a very adept fencer. She took fencing in Waverly College growing up, on the border of the Old Kingdom, where magic is real, and she is pretty good at sword fighting, like a priest. So I think one of the first things that we want to do to differentiate our necromancer is to give them some elements of priest-like progression. And that's why I have this pulled up here. And I'm gonna show you guys in edit mode here. I have some other spellcasting options off to the side. A spell progression that could be similar to the seer, which I don't know if you can fully see it here. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. So a seer spell progression is the most limited in Shadowdark. They have the fewest spells, so they start with only one. And that's because seers are sort of priest-like. They have a d6 hit point progression and some other very powerful built-in talents outside of their spellcasting ability. And what that also allowed me to do, limiting their spellcasting, was to make their individual spells higher in average power level than an ordinary spell, because they have access to so few of them. I actually upregulated the power of their spells a little bit. And then, down here, down below, conversely, we have a wizard spell progression. You see, they get the most spells throughout the game. They get the most. And they start with 3. And sometimes at various levels gain 2 spells, depending, of like one of a high level and then one of a low level. Wizards are utility classes, and they have a wide range of things that they can do in Shadowdark. They're not a focused spellcasting class in the way that a necromancer might be. And I don't personally think that their spell progression fits what we're trying to do here. I think that a priest is a good balance here between having access to some spells and having access to some martial ability, and then their spellcasting not being so limited that it's not an important part of their class. So that is why I want to suggest to the chat that we go with a priest-style progression. So I don't know, what do you all think of this? Like a different flavor of priest. If there's one thing we don't have a lot of, it's like a different flavor of priest. So we have seers, and that's about as close as it gets. Francis, if we give this class a mount, the community is going to rebel. I don't think she needs a mount. I don't think the necromancer does not need a mount. Not needed. So we're not going to do that this time. There's no precedent in the source material I'm drawing from where a mount is an important part of their build. So, all right. So let's go with priest progression, and we'll keep it there for now. Priest of the dark arts, but not necessarily dark themselves, So we're gonna continue on here. I'm gonna delete this, but I wanted to put a note here where it said priest, showing you that was the progression we're using. So firstly, we talked about some combat ability being available to these guys, and I think that's important, because their goal is not simply to create dead and control them. In a lot of cases, their purpose could be to fight against the dead, and they have to be able to defend themselves against the dead, because they're going into dangerous places where that will be their task. And so we're going to give them access to some of the same things priests have. We're going to give them, I believe, a d6 hit points would be warranted. D6 per level. Weapons. They have to have a longsword. It's just like what Sabriel has. She has I have to make it so she can wield one. So one-handed bladed weapons seems to make sense. So I think we're going to we give almost all classes access to a dagger, longsword, short sword. I don't want to give her access to any higher level sword, same as the priest here. A longsword is a pretty good option. Sabriel can also do some basic archery related things, although that's certainly not her expertise zone. but most of the time a crossbow is an appropriate option to give to a partially martial, partially spellcasting class. A scimitar, perhaps. I think that maybe a scimitar. I'll think on that. To me, scimitar has a flavor that's a bit departed from here, but we'll consider that. We'll consider a scimitar because a lot of necromancer lore is also coming from more desert style settings as well. I mean, everything pertaining to mummies has a necromantic tinge to it. A shield is probably a no, because I'll think on this when we're talking about armor. I have never seen a necromancer in the source material using a shield. And so I think we're going to allow them to be lightly armored. Recall too that they are entering the river of death or walking in places where the river of death or the ocean of death is real. And so I do not think they should have access to plate mail. That makes no real sense for them. So we're going to limit them to chain mail. So we're going to say leather armor, chain mail, and I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. They're lightly armored warriors. A scythe. We don't actually have a scythe statted out. I personally view a scythe as just sort of a curved dagger. Personally, I don't know if we need to necessarily define a scythe specific to this class. The reason we define like a lance specific to the paladin is because a lance is such a specific and iconic weapon that needed particular game stats. But I don't really think I would differentiate a scythe in any way from a dagger. So I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. It seems like pure flavor to me and not really particular to game stats. So, and plus, again, I don't know why, but none of the source necromancers I'd be referencing really had a thing for scythes. They all had swords. So I think a staff would also be appropriate. As you all said in the chat, I believe a staff would be quite appropriate. So I am trying to decide if we need to do any other weapons. I'm trying to think, are there any other weapons? Maybe we'll consider a scimitar. We'll add it. I think a scimitar is a worthy weapon for a lightly armored warrior. I'm mutating the core book cleric. Well, a little bit. There's that. So, let's leave that for now as our weapons. A mace or a flail. Here's the reason I would actually tend away from them. Again, in our source material, at most, I mean, a lot of these necromancers wield enchanted blades. And I think that there's something about like cutting and stabbing that seems to be more important to necromancers in these stories. Sometimes here's an example. Sabriel has at times like been dealing with a dead spirit that had like a spirit thread leading from it, and cutting that thread was actually an important thing she needed to do. And so I think bladed weapons align more with that kind of thing. We'll see if it comes up. But all right, so let's talk next about any other extras. So languages. I do not see a reason to give them access to rare or special languages. They talk mostly to the dead or other people, and you need to be able to speak the language of the dead, and so common is probably their most used. So I'm going to just remove language specialties here. And then we are starting to get into the idea of talents. So, like I said, we're going for a fiction-forward necromancer, a ground-level necromancer, not a flashy, like, I'm going to summon 14 skeletons and then, like, have them turn into a skeleton wall that falls on you type things. We're talking more like the job of these necromancers is to be a part of the world that has death as just a part of life, moving amongst people and dealing with death or the corruption of death, perhaps. So one thing that I find important to this, and one thing I found in common with these source material people were drawing from, it was a death sense. And it was the innate ability to sense the dead and nearby death. So I think that's something we want to give these guys, because that really could matter in dungeon crawling. And it's actually very, very valuable for detecting undead who can hide themselves like vampires. There are plenty of there are actually multiple stories in these books that I brought up where the wizard, the necromancer, was needed to determine who in a fishing village, for example, was the one possessed by a dead creature, and the necromancer had to be called upon to come there to help solve this problem and find who was the dead person and then expel that spirit from them and deal with the possessing dead creature. So to me, very, very, very cool. So you can sense the location and general power level of any undead being within near of you. You can sense the death of any creature in near of you. The location and general power level of any undead being within near of you. You can sense the death of any creature within near. I don't necessarily need to say of you. I think it's implied. And Christopher is asking, does this work behind barriers? Historically in like D&D, a lot of times there were things that could block this. And so, and I actually like that. I like the fact that there are some things that can block this effect. So usually it would be like a lead barrier could block this effect. So a lead barrier blocks this effect. That's really specific, and sometimes it's like not good to put super specific stuff in here, but I think it's kind of cool. What sense the death of any creature means. So you can sense when a creature dies. You can sense its moment of death. So we can, and what I usually end up doing after we write these is going in and refining the wording so it's like more punchy and more constrained, So I'm not gonna make you guys watch me edit my own writing. I think it's more important for us to get our ideas down. So, all right, let me see. We just need to lock a necromancer inside a fridge from the 1950s. Yeah. Yeah, Snick says death and general cause. That could be cool. That could be cool. How would that come into play? Like, general cause. I'm trying to wonder if that was a thing that occurred. I don't know if there's a precedent for that in any of the fiction that I can recall as like knowing the general cause, but that could be helpful. General cause, that is cool. Let's add that. Sense the death and general cause. You can sense the death of a creature and the general cause of its death. So this is, the wording on this is a little bigger than I would usually want, but we'll keep it there. Okay. So we've got some like general death sense stuff sorted out. The one thing that I've since I've been investigating our source material, because I did know the Necromancer was the winner like a day and a half ago, so I started to be like, all right, I think I have to start to at least try to consider some ideas for us here. So it is the case that this class, I can't imagine that it wouldn't have access to the same raising dead type spells that a wizard has access to. And so they're definitely going to have access to that, and I don't want to forget to add those. But we'll get to spells in a second. The last thing I wanted to talk about or try to come up with or potentially address is the idea of walking in the land of death, And Brandon Cox is asking, is this power creeping the wizard? No, we are not making a wizard parallel. We're making a priest parallel. This class has much more limited access to spellcasting than a wizard does, and certainly less combat ability than a priest will have. So let's see. Interacting with the dead. Yes, well, that will be a thing. So I'm trying to think, like, do we need to create some kind of ability or talent that has something to do with walking in death, or do we make it a spell? And I almost hesitate to make it a spell because it's the kind of thing that's such an inherent ability. You know, we could make it a spell, but then give access to the spell in the way that we give priests access to turn undead. So why don't we consider that to start with? So let's consider that. So walk in death. So you know the walk in death spell at first level. It does not count toward your known spells. And we will italicize. I actually don't recall do I uppercase spells in this game? I don't remember. Sometimes I get a little bit. I forget. I get style guides crossed up between like 5th edition and what I can do. What I've written. I do not capitalize spell names in Shadowdark, so I'm going to just fix this. You know the walk-in death spell, and we don't need to. It does not count toward your number of known spells. Okay, and we should make that a spell. I want to make that a first level spell. So here we are working on a Necromancer spell list. So I'm going to say one of our first ones is walk in death, and these are not going to be in alphabetical order to start. Walk in death. A tier 1 Necromancer spell. And I want to put the duration as focus. This is something that they can keep active. And the range is close. So this is going to be probably one of the most challenging things that we design for this class, because this is going to be a defining spell of the class. But I want to create some method for them to enter into the land of death and then have a few things that they can do as a result of that. And so let's see if we have any questions so far. Shouldn't this be a super rare spell? Well, yes, only they know it. Only necromancers can cast this spell. And let me see. Wading through the labyrinthine bog. Command Undead, absolutely. That's a great idea. Command Undead is a thing I do want to give them. And so that might even be worth noting right now. One thing that I'll do, and I'm going to put it at like tier 3. We might change that. Undead. I'm also going to just quick slap in the known wizard spells that I think there will be crossover for. I'm debating whether to give them potential turn undead. I think it makes sense. And so I think we kind of have to, you know. There is, I think that one thing that they will probably need is protection from evil. Although, we'll see about that. One interesting thing I'll note is that Sabrielle, for example, when she's walking in death, needs to have cast a protective spell on her body before she does that. Otherwise, like, she basically is unconscious, like when she's like standing frozen when that's happening. So you can't have 2 focus spells going at the same time. So I'm wondering if protection from evil is maybe not quite the right thing. And this actually, interestingly enough, she casts this on her body or like around herself. I think it's called Diamond of Protection. And maybe we'll call it that. Maybe we'll call it something like that. She's going to cast like diamond I don't want to like actually use like specific stuff from, you don't want to like call halflings hobbits on accident. but maybe we could call it like barrier. And I think barrier is going to be a spell that temporarily gives you safety against here we're going to say turn undead. Oh, like maybe we'll call it like, yeah, we'll call it barrier. And I think it's going to be something that gives you like, for 5 rounds, protection against physical attack. And then I'm just putting concepts in here right now. Something that allows their bodies to be safe. Stygian barrier. That's a cool, I like that. It is like something they cast around their actual body though, like in the real world. And it's like, like you don't want a bear running up on you while you're like astral projecting and biting you. So it's not meant to just keep out undead. It's meant to keep out like any hostile creatures. Like Diamond Ward. The reason it's a diamond shape in Sabriel is because you have to cast 4 points onto the ground at each cardinal direction in order for the diamond of protection to actually form correctly around you. So I want to give something kind of like that. Barrier raises the defense. It's like mage armor. It is like mage armor, but I might just say that it like gives hostile creatures like disadvantage on their attacks against you, which is actually kind of powerful. That's like almost more powerful than protection from evil. So it's tough. Maybe what we'll do is make Walk in Death a duration spell and then just give protection from evil. So like I feel like that fits the precedent better. Protection, that is going to run too far, so let me just make sure. I'm actually just gonna copy pasta it from the Shadowdark actual book. Bookmarks, magic, spells. So protection from evil. We'll just grab this whole thing and put it here for now. Yeah, I think we just need to put like protection from evil. Actually, I was thinking of this spell from Sabriel when I wrote protection from evil anyway. So it is kind of like why you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time you work on something. So we're gonna keep that we're gonna have that be a tier 1 Necromancer spell. And she shall be. So we'll call this 10 rounds duration. And if you don't leave at the end of the spell's duration, something bad happens to you. Probably you have to start making checks to continue your way out. I really like protection from evil too because it has like a double crossover thingy into the effects that necromancers in the stories can do, and that is expelling possession. Like in no situation is an undead creature not chaotic except for one notable exception, which is Mordanticus the Flayed. So we're going to just leave it there. We're going to have protection from evil be their ending possession and protecting themselves spell combined all in one. Dispel magic would be really bad. Dispel magic would mess up a necromancer. You don't want that. All right. So we have all of that. So for now, we have that. Cool. And we kind of have this is about what I would give a spellcaster. Like if we're back over here looking at the necromancer class as a whole, this is about it because spellcasting classes are very, very powerful. And so they usually get 1 or 2 flavorful talents that come alongside their spellcasting, but they are truly spellcasting is the main focus. So, all right. Now comes the time where we want to start thinking about what spells do they have. And this is going to be where we spend the bulk of our time here. So first and foremost, we have protection from evil, turn undead, walk in death, and we have another option here as well. I will alphabetize all of this after the fact. And we have room for another tier 1 spell. Let me fill in the other spells that I believe that they would just definitely get access to. So one would be possibly Holy Weapon, because they're warrior types. I don't want to create too much crossover, though, with the priest. So let's leave that one there for now. We don't have to do that. I'm going to focus more on the undead stuff first and foremost. So Create Undead is a 5th tier spell, and I think, obviously, they would have access to that. I think that Animate Dead would also be one. I know there's a man and undead, so we're gonna say Animate Undead is another one, or actually it's just Animate Dead. Because you need a body for that one. So I'm gonna grab these and just put them in here at some point, but we don't really have to. We'll work on developing the ones that are not crossover spells. So just so that we can keep track of this, I'm gonna italicize ones that are crossover spells so that we don't have to fuss about remembering. So these ones are crossover. All right. And Command Undead will probably be modeled on the command spell. And so it's almost enough crossover, but I'm just gonna slap it in here. This is the body text of the command spell, and we're gonna limit it specifically to undead. It's not as powerful as actual command, so we'll have to take that into account. Maybe it will actually be a tier 2 spell for that reason. And the duration is focus, and the range is far to one undead creature in range who can understand you. If the command is ever directly harmful to the creature, I don't think we need that. To one undead creature of level 5 or less in range who can understand you. Or you know what? We can make this a scaling spell. No, we'll say of level 5 or less. That we'll just make it level 5 from the start. Because I don't want you to be able to just like point at a vampire and be like, do what I say. But any kind of lesser undead for sure. So let's fix this and actually put it over here. Okay. So we have that. Cool. Okay, how are we doing, chat? Let's check in. Spell design definitely seems like it's gonna be a lot of like watching me talk to myself. A bunch of, okay, you can delete who can understand you. Yeah, I could. I mean, I want the undead creature to have to be able to understand you. So I think, yeah, like, is there a reason to include that? There is not. You're right. There's not a reason to include that because even like abominable undead that are beyond humanity, are not really, that's not needed. I'm gonna say stop. You know, Neil's sort of like not as good for, cool. All right. So let's see what the chat's saying so far. Oh yeah, Speak with Dead. That's a big one. We need that. Where are you, Speak with Dead? I think is that a 2nd tier spell? I always forget. Speak with, oh, it's a 3rd tier spell. Speak with dead. We need that. That's for sure. So, and I think we should probably stop our crossover there with the wizard, because that's a lot. That's 1, 2, 3. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Between the priest and the wizard. So it makes sense, you know. Like you could. I want to see if there's any like part of the strength of this class that we're gonna have to consider is that. Part of their strength is that they have a little bit of priest and a little bit of wizard in them, right? So I don't want to shy away from that as a precedent when we're designing. Like I think having some mixed access to both priest and wizard spells is like kind of cool. This is probably the most crossover we've ever made in a class. But that is okay. Do I typically write while doing layout? Yes, I usually do both at the same time. So but I don't want to make you guys sit here and watch me like fuss with wording, so we're gonna kind of take a soft angle on it this go. Later Rest is a tier 3 pre-spell that we also need. Yes, Later Rest. And I think that's good because then we have access to like what, 2 pre-spells, and then 2 Necromancer spells. So and this is making me wonder if we just need to make a bigger spell list at certain levels for them, because Lay to Rest is another crossover spell. And for those who don't know, the text of that spell is you instantly send an undead creature you touch to its final afterlife, destroying it utterly. You can target an undead creature of level 9 or less. And I'll just throw that in here. Oops. And that's a tier 3 Necromancer, instant and close, and that's very crucial for their powers. What's going on? Why can't I highlight? Is there something over this page? Okay. Later Rest, Animate Dead. We'll just put a placeholder here. Tier 3. So you guys see me doing all this like mocking up of the layout, but I think this is really important for when you're creating and designing. I think you just need to have like an overall look at what you have available to you as you go, especially for spellcasters, because when you're designing a spellcaster, there's a lot of like staring at all of it and being like, okay, here's the various things we have access to at various power levels. Do we have to change the power level of this? Do we have to bump that up or down? So having like a whole like look at all the stuff available to you for a spellcaster is really helpful. So I just want to make sure we get all that filled in because we'll want to know. Animate Dead, Later Rest, and Speak with Dead, which we will incorporate as well. Speak with Dead. This is a longer spell. Let me see if I can pull this down enough for it to fit. Yeah, okay. Tier 3, and that duration is instant and it's close range. Okay. Animate Dead. Just to give you guys a general idea of what this does. Okay. You can basically animate a recently dead body. The remains must have at least 3 limbs and its head intact. The undead being, I'm just gonna switch this to being. No, it doesn't fit. The creature, undead being. Oh, there we go. Yeah, no, I'm gonna say being just so it all fits on a single line. It's the same thing. And it is a duration of 1 day and close. So, there was nothing precluding Sabriel or Gad from animating dead. They would do this if they needed to. I can't think of a time in which Sabrielle did this because it was sort of anathema to her code, and it would be it would actually result in like corruption, you know. So I don't know if we need to mechanize corruption. I think that we may do so in through like through spell failures or something, but I think that like corruption is already sort of conveyed through alignment in this case. And I'm not sure, like I this is something I want to see how the chat feels like. You know, do we need to mechanize like a necromancer's corruption level? Like, you know, I don't necessarily know if we need to. But perhaps we will mechanize corruption sounds like a cool spell. Yeah. Hi from Finland. Yeah, like do we need to have like a mechanical difference between a good necromancer and a bad necromancer? Oh, also people are asking if we're going to incorporate Belle's like in Sabrielle. She has a title. She is like the Aborson, which is the one good necromancer. And so I may inadvertently refer to her as the Aborson, but that is also like what she's called. And like, you know, are we going to implement bells? I don't know. I don't want to like completely create like a I don't want to entirely recreate the idea of the Aborson and necromancers from this fiction. I want to use it as inspiration. And so I think we're pulling more from flavor. But I mean, bells and music and spellcasting are really cool. So we could make spells that pertain to that, you know? Like here's an example that I just saw Death Knell go through. I saw that someone say Death Knell, which is like really a cool name for a spell. And like, what if we called like a spell Death Knell, and it had a requirement of, you know, Death Knell, you know, in order to cast this spell, like you have to, oops, what did I do? Maybe like you have to like sound a musical instrument or something, one thing that I thought was really cool from Sabrielle, and also Ged would do this too. The strength of like music actually carried certain magical power or like enhanced magical ability. And this is actually true in Wizard of Earthsea, if I recall too, because at times Ged would use his voice in like a strong like speaking tone to sort of cut through the miasma of the world of death and the sort of atrophy and ennui of what that would overtake people in the land of death. And his voice, I recall him using his voice. Also, in some cases, Sabrielle was without her bell and instead would like she didn't have her bell bandolier and her 9 bells, so she would sing. And like be able to sort of invoke some limited versions of her spellcasting through singing or whistling pure notes, which I thought was really cool. So Death Knell to Death Toll. Well, I mean, Death Knell is actually like the ringing of a bell that's done when a church is like announcing like a tragedy or a death. Sometimes they'll toll the bells or do a death knell of the bells as a part of the funeral process. And we could call it like Toll of the Bell instead, which I think is actually cooler. Toll of the Bell. Toll of the Bell. And we could say like, in order to cast a spell, you must ring a bell. We have the occasional in order to cast a spell requirement. Yeah, and we could say free to carry that. Oh, I really like that idea. Was it Scott S. who said that? I love the flavor of that idea where we can give the necromancer, why don't we say like instrument? You have a small musical instrument. A bell or a flute. It does not occupy gear slots. There's something important about the instrument that I think would be cool to identify. Like, it's not like it's like a woodwind, or like it's like either a percussive or like woodwind instrument. Like technically a harmonica could work. What was important was that the sound was generated by wind or metal, you know, and I don't know why that is. That was just part of the lore. Oh yeah, and Wyvern's saying perhaps the 9 could have some significance for the necromancers as well. Yes, there were 9 bells, and each was named after a god, and that did occur to me when I was writing the gods of the Shadowdark world too. So, you know, in a way, it is kind of priest-like in nature. A lyre, a bell, a chime, or a gong. Yeah, why don't we say such as a bell, chime, or flute? It does not occupy gear slots. And then when we're talking about their spells, you must, you must sound an instrument, a musical instrument. Sound is maybe kind of weird. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, sound is in like you're not playing a song, you're creating a note. You must sound a musical instrument. I think that kind of works. You can sound a bell, you can sound a chime, you can sound a whistle, you can sound a flute. And does silence stop them? I don't know. I don't think silence needs to stop them. I think it's to enact the spell. And ocarina would work. Actually, that would be very fitting as well. It seems to fit the time, or why did I say time? It seems to fit the theme. You must play a note on an instrument. Yeah. You must play or sound. And then what effect will this have? Yeah, what effect? Yeah, I think sound sort of actually on like you must sound a note on a musical instrument. So if your instrument is taken from you, otherwise you cast a spell at disadvantage. She can still cast it by singing. So adds D4 to death timers. What's interesting is that the bells had all kinds of effects. Their first and most gentle effect was it would basically cast sleep on everyone who heard it. And some of the other bells would do things like force an undead creature to walk itself back into death or to walk away physically. One was that it would force, like a couple of them were interesting. Like if you were in the land of death when you used it, you would be cast further into the realm of death, and the target of the spell would be brought closer to the border of life where they could step through into life. That one wasn't very popular for people like Seb. She used it once, I think. The 9th bell, the most powerful, was that it kills all who hear it. And so, maybe we could make some cool spells that like tie into the gates of death that have an effect. Maybe we should make a spell at each level that basically mimics one of these effects in some way. That would actually be extra cool. And one thing that we could do would be to incorporate this feature into the Necromancer's spellcasting requirements in general. In order to cast any spell, you must sound. Actually, I should probably put this in the spellcasting spot. In order to cast a spell, you must sound a note on a musical instrument, otherwise you cast it at disadvantage. That's cool. Like that could just be a part of how spellcasting works for them, and then we can make this a thing that necromancers kind of have to do. That very Sabrielifies the class, which we'll see if we keep this, but I think it's kind of cool. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. And now why don't we talk about maybe making a spell that at each level that sort of mimics, slumber, maybe we'll call this, and affect all who hear it fall asleep, including undead. I don't think undead ordinarily sleep. So, and we'll limit it to, we might have to level limit, possibly, but higher for undead. We probably don't want to make a first tier spell where, again, like turn undead is the like nuke button. And it is powerful for level 1. I think maybe we'll limit it specifically to undead, but in the real world it did affect other creatures. And all who hear it, like we're probably all who ear it. Look what I wrote. All who hear it fall asleep in a limited range. I don't want to limit it to just undead, otherwise it's not going to be that useful. But yeah, sleep may or may not be the most powerful spell in 5e. We'll have to figure out. Of course, we'll mess with how this works because I don't intend to make another sleep spell. We will probably do something more gentle. Yeah, people are saying that, like, so we're seeing, for example, the ranger, we can make the bell have an ability that has a d6 effect. I would maybe do that, except in the case that we're making a spellcaster, so we probably might as well. So please don't turn the necromancer into a bard, so gross. Well, if you read Sabriel and then you still have that opinion, then I will consider it. But we're trying to make their magic unique and interesting. And this is most certainly not going to be a bard class. This is going to be the fact that they're using different ways to invoke magic. The same as a priest. Priests have to present their holy symbols often when they're casting a spell. And so we're trying to create a bit of a softer version of the holy symbol for them. So there we go. Slumber sounds like a party. Perhaps exhaust instead of slumber. Undead don't sleep. Right. We will specify that undead can be affected by this. Okay. Wasn't Orpheus technically a necromancer? Perhaps. Maybe we'll call this lullaby. Yeah, that's a cool. Why can't I spell? How do you spell lullaby? Is that not how you spell lullaby? Why is it telling me it's spelled wrong? Repose. ABY. Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, you're right. That's true. Okay, so lullaby. Okay, so we have lullaby. Why don't we think of some other cool effects? So pulling from our source fiction here. Let me see. I think we've covered a lot of what Ged could do as far as summoning and creating undead. I think that we're gonna probably need a mishaps like list specific to the necromancer. So we'll consider that. I will note that in here. Where was I looking? Oh yeah. I will note that you must roll on the corresponding necromancer or necromancy mishaps. We'll just call it necromancer mishaps. Table for the spells tier. So, that's probably how I would incorporate corruption into this. Like, I don't necessarily. Yeah, I think the maybe they'll have corruption, or perhaps the mishaps table will be keyed to alignment. Like maybe maybe we'll have to consider how to take that into account. Is it corruption? Because the thing I want to be careful of is if we have lawfully aligned spellcasters casting spells, the assumption is that they're casting these spells in a way that aligns with lawful behavior, thus their alignment. So are they doing it for evil? I don't know. So the bell from Elden Ring. I've never played Elden Ring, unfortunately. But we'll see. So what do necromancers cast spells with? Good question. I personally feel that they cast spells from force of will. It is not necessarily, I mean, it's a mixture of intelligence and force of will, but I wouldn't say wisdom. I don't necessarily think wisdom. I would probably say charisma, honestly, because it's about their ability to impose their will upon the undead. And wisdom is more about piousness and being in tune with religious fervor and all of that. So it definitely has to be one of the mental stats, and I'm thinking it would have to be charisma. Yeah, so each time you use your charisma to cast necromancer spells. Yeah, charisma is the same. For example, like turn undead is an opposed charisma check because it's like sort of a duel of wills. And so I think that makes the most sense to me. Constitution, I could see it for like someone said, like a blood spellcaster or something, but the source of the necromancer's power is their ability to impose their will upon the dead, not their ability to sort of physically overpower, So charisma equals necrobard. Oh no, not necrobard. No, this is not going to be a necrobard. We're essentially having a small instrument stand in as their holy symbol, in this case. So I don't want anybody to be too worried about that. I think the priest stat should have been charisma. Yeah, I get that. I think that piousness and all of that it could be categorized differently enough from charisma that I'm comfortable with the decision to have the priest be wisdom based. That also was a bit of a nod to historical precedent, I think it would have been very jarring to try to force a change to the cleric / priest's historically accepted lineup of things. I already did a little bit by giving them access to bladed weapons, and because they're also a form of paladin if you're just using the core rules. So yeah, that was my reasoning. Okay, so we've already been designing for an hour. Oh, wow. Okay, let's see what everyone is saying now. All right, I wanted to think a little bit about and I want to point out, I know I have 4 entries for each spell tier. We could certainly put more. And in fact, I'm assuming we'll have a few more in each. So I'll just fill this out a little bit more. We'll probably have at least, like, I'm guessing 6 spells for each tier. So I'll try to just make room for that right now. Let me just pull this down for us. Let's at least have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And that'll give us a range of options. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we changed this to lullaby. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why is this hard for me? Is this also 6? 3 and 3? Yeah. Okay. So let's try to open up to some ideas and things about other spells in general. Walk in Death, I think we're going to have be like a list of things you can do. So maybe that would be worth considering. I'm going to put down some like flavor for us about what Walk in Death will probably allow. And, like, you cast, like, you cast all Necromancer spells with advantage while under the effects of this spell. That could be a thing. If you're walking in death and you're trying to cast necromantic spells, I feel like that's but like this is going to be a hard one to define because the first of all, this is an out of body experience, like astral projecting into realm of death. So you are not in the realm of the living when you are under the effects of this spell. So that should be made clear. You can't like cast walk in death on yourself and then be like, I am now casting stuff at advantage. And so we don't necessarily even need this to be true. You know, in fact, maybe we won't include that because that is actually like, I don't think it's needed. Out of body experience into realm of death. And so let's just like think of like, let's just bullet list out like a couple of possible things you can do while in the realm of death. 10 rounds is a long time. You know what we could do? We could have it be like 2d4 rounds. And that makes it interesting because like you go in with a purpose and if you don't get out in time, something bad is happening to you. So that one will be interesting. What about fear and drain life? Well, here's one thing. I think you can catch spirit recently dead of the recently dead. So if one of your companions dies and you decide to go into the realm of death, I think you can catch their spirit and hold it as long as you stay in the realm of death. That kind of essentially extends their death timer while taking you out of action. So that could be interesting. Like, can they bring you back? Maybe, you know, we'll have to think about that one. What else can you do in death? You can summon dead to speak to. Like, we could have this mimic like augury in some way. And some other stuff that you can do in death. You can possess the living, maybe. I think it's the undead who can possess the living. I've never seen a necromancer do it. Tier 1 failure if you overstay in death. Ooh, that's a really good way to put it. Yeah. If you don't leave by, you suffer a tier 1 mishap each round until you leave. Something like that. Or like life drain. Your con score drains. Actually, maybe we should do that. If you don't leave, you take 1d4 con damage each round until you leave death at 0. Death drains you. You can only resist the pull of death for so long. It's happened to several of Horson. They've stayed too long in death and become undead creatures themselves. So, yeah, pause the death timer. And then kind of the last thing I'll note in here is that the ability to bring a creature back, a recently dead creature, back from death. Oh, Kiwi was hoping for con loss, like permanent. Ooh, I think some of our mishaps might want to be con loss. And I actually think that I might do something I've never done before, which is create a mishap table that has different effects based on your alignment. So if you're an evil necromancer, the way that you are abusing spellcasting is causing you harm. And if you're a good aligned necromancer, abusing spellcasting maybe has some other effect on you. And I wouldn't say abuse. It's not necessarily the fact that you're abusing spellcasting. It's just that you're casting spells a lot. So I'm going to note that down here. Mishaps table for the spells tier and your alignment. So, or maybe, you know, like, I don't know if we need to create, I just want to make note of that just so that we don't forget to incorporate that. Because we have the space to, so we should. So then that way, like, yeah, then that way, like, evil necromancers accumulate like corruptive mishaps, and then good necromancers have other things happen to them, probably just losing control of the spell, like a bit more in the vein of a wizard. That would be kind of how I would see it. A neutral wizard would probably fall into the same category as a lawful wizard or a lawful necromancer. Okay, alignment-based mishaps, yes. So, what is the, okay, let's take a look one more time over here at what Walk in Death could do. And I'm trying to think, so let's think of like Ged. When he was in death, he was in for a really long time. He actually was in there for like days at one point. So maybe that could be a more powerful version of this spell at a higher level. And I'm just going to start slapping out ideas here. So like I could say that a tier 5 spell could be Dwell in Death, where you can spend like long stretches of time in there without potential harm. And maybe I'll just throw notes in long stretches in the land of death. So that could be cool. Like you go in there and it'll give you access to even greater strange things that you can do in the land of death. Yeah, reveal powerfully hidden truths, that kind of thing. Puppet the Dying. That's an interesting one. Puppet the Dying. Yeah. One thing that is the case is that undead creatures can exit into life if you bring them with you, but that's sort of similar to casting like Animate Dead or whatever. Tier 5 is Cross the River. Yeah, well, here's one thing I also want to throw out. So there are like gates, like gates or precincts of death that like areas through which both Ged and Sabriel walked through at various points where it was obvious that death was becoming more powerful around them. You know, and in the case of Sabriel and the River of Death, there were actual gates, like precincts between, like the river passed through strange gates, you know, and then going deeper into death was riskier. There were more powerful undead. And the same is kind of true for Ged. He was walking through the land of death, and he, like, there was a borderland, and then it turned into like a town, and then it turned into like this big wasteland, and then it turned into these mountains. And so maybe we should like talk about that in some way. Like, should we reference that? Like, and I'm just throwing names out there for inspiration, but maybe we could say like there's like first gate, and then there's second gate, and then third gate, fourth gate, and then fifth gate. And these reference, each bell in Sabriel has a district, of course, and like there are 9 in Sabriel. I think that might be too much for us. And actually each of the precincts was tied to its god. Like each gate was kind of tied to its god. In Sabriel, there were 9 bells, 9 gates, 9 gods. And so I don't know. I don't think we have room to do like all of them, but you know, I think that like, yeah, they allow some like deeper awakening to death, or some effect that you can pull from that gate that like has a cool necromantic effect. You know, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're walking through the 5th gate. It's more like you're creating a magical effect that is drawn from the power of the 5th gate. So I'll kind of just like slap that down. Like magical, in our notes here, magical effect drawn from the first gate of death. Yeah, and this has like obviously like tie-ins to like the river Styx as well. Oh, that would be, I have an idea for a cool spell in that, like like we could do a sort of gentle repose style spell, or even a like we could do a spell that like allows you essentially to seal a corpse from being used as an undead being, or we might call that like funeral rites. And you know, prevent body from being turned undead. Turned. This is especially useful when you're about to when you're slain by a wight or something, and then I forget. And I remember there was like a delay on rising as a wight in former editions, and I forget if I removed that delay or a wight. It's like, oh no, I didn't do that. Okay, so yeah, I feel like we could do that. That could be interesting. Like if you got bit by a vampire or something, you can actually still prevent them from being turned into an undead. Or, like the idea of putting burning bodies to prevent them. Like there was like historical tradition of burning bodies as part of funeral rites, or beheading them to prevent them from being turned into undead. Or sometimes beheading undead was seen as a way to desecrate a body and prevent the soul from finding final rest. So in all cases, I think the spell could maybe prevent that from happening to a dead body found. And I think that it would be incumbent upon a good necromancer to cast this wherever possible on a found body, whereas an evil necromancer, they would probably be more interested in figuring out how to use that body for like animate dead or something. So shouldn't a priest be able to do this funeral rites as well? Yeah, probably. So maybe rather than calling it a funeral rite, maybe we need to call it something slightly different. Like maybe we should be like maybe we should call it like seal soul or something. Just cause I want to differentiate it. So let's call it like, seal soul. Because of course I think a priest could give a funeral rite, and I would allow, like, let's say a priest decided to give a good funeral rite to a body. I would personally, if the priest was good aligned, I would apply the same effect from the spell to it, where you can't use that body for profane purposes. Yeah, okay. Since there's a musical theme emerging, if an evil character has a spell mishap, they can engage in a fiddle contest with an evil entity. I don't want to lean too hard into the music, otherwise people are going to be like, what? You said you were making a necromancer, not a bard, so this is not supposed to be a bard. Music is their holy symbol. We'll just keep it there because we're drawing from these two wonderful books in particular. These two, yes, read them. Go read these books. Tell Garth Nix I'm his fan and maybe he'll notice me, senpai. No. Actually, can I tell you a story? Garth Nix has been my hero, my writing hero, since I was a kid. And he ran one of my adventures. He played one of my adventures that I wrote, a 5th edition adventure. And that was like, it was the most full circle thing that's ever happened to me, where this like writer who I've always deeply admired and stuff has like played one of my adventures and like told me about it. I couldn't believe it. If Garth Nix is watching, come play Shadowdark with me. I'll run an adventure for you. Yeah. Okay. So, here we go. Also, I promise I'm respecting your IP and not incorporating anything on Legally Distinct into this. These books. Okay, for those who missed it, this is Sabriel by Garth Nix. It's part of the Aborson trilogy, or there are more books for it now too, short stories as well. And then the Wizard of Earthsea, which is a trilogy to begin. This is one of my favorite books of all time also, so please read it. It's absolutely amazing. So cool. Dungeon ideas in it that are like the coolest you've ever read. And then the last one, The Farthest Shore, wherein Ged actually enters the realm of death for an extended period of time. So all really cool stuff. This might have been the first Wizards College depicted in fiction, maybe in fiction. There might have been that happening in Sword and Sorcery fiction prior. This is one of the first earliest depictions of a Wizards College in fiction, which is really cool, the Island of Rogue. Yes, the Earthsea books are very worth your time. Rest in peace, Ursula. So, okay, let's try to come up with some more names for spells, because this is what I start to do at this point. I often recommend this to people, and I want to recommend it to you all too. This was excellent advice that I got from somebody who is a like adventure kind of critic, I guess. Like he does a lot of critiquing of adventures, and he is very, very good at it and has done many of them. And he said that he thinks that the best writing derives from imagining first, designing second. And I've written even a blog post about this on my website, but to reiterate the importance of that lesson, I think that designing from a conceptual standpoint first, and like an inspiration standpoint drawn from fiction or from your own interest in stuff, I think you should design from there first. Like, you know, come from your source material and then figure out how to make the mechanics fit that after the fact. So that's why when I'm at this stage in developing a spellcaster, I will often just start coming up with cool names for spells. I'll be like, whoa, that sounds cool. Like anathema, what does that do? Or, you know, and yeah, like burn spirit, conjure garlic, spirit compass. Yeah, like starting to come up with, like, even if it's just like a single word, like spectral step. I mean, I think drain life could totally be in line with that. So that sounds powerful. So I'm going to say drain life is maybe a 3rd level spell, and it will maybe have a focus on damage. We want to make sure not to outpace the wizard's damage output as far as spells go. We'll keep this in line with where the priest can land. So damage, so keep in line with priest. This is now starting to go off the page. That's just the nature of notes, sorry. Okay. So drain life is cool. Infernal gate, chill touch. Chill touch exists in 5e, and this is a challenge, but excoriate. That sounds cool. Let's put that. I don't even know what we're gonna do with that, but I just think it sounds cool. I forget. I have to define that. I look up the definition of that word again, but I think it means to like cast out violently. Spectral vision, maybe, or maybe even just vision. Maybe even just the word vision. I like that. Because we don't necessarily always have to tie it back to undeath. I think that we can make that feature implicit in the spell if needed. And we also have to be careful not to give the Necromancer spells that only do undead stuff, because they need a little bit of variety, like a little bit of it. Ooh, Death's Cowl. I like Lamentation. Let's do that. Let's see if that could fit Lamentation. Like that sounds like it aligns with the sort of folk magic vibe we're going for with Necromancer spells. Because we're not trying to go, like I said, we're not trying to go super like MMO, like blow up skeletons and turn them into a wall bones. That's been done, and it's cool, and people have done it for all games, and so I don't want to retread that ground. Power word kill might be a thing that we have to allow access to. It might have to be. And in fact, I want 5th gate to sort of replicate that effect in some way. So like power word kill effect, because in the fiction, the furthest gate, which in Sabriel is at 9th gate, is also linked to the spirit Asterial, who is all who hear the toll of that bell die, or cast deep into the realm of death. So I think having a power word kill-esque effect for the 5th gate spell would be cool and fitting. And disintegrates a little bit too wizardly. Final toll, we could do something like Entomb. I like that too. Entomb. Why don't we try final toll as a possible thing? I think that's cool. Sabriel mentioned right here, sup duds. This is our primary inspiration for this class, followed by Wizard of Earthsea. I just want to keep showing you these because I also love the art on them so much. Sorry, I keep pulling them up. And if you haven't read them, please read them. So cool. Moribund. That sounds cool too. Memento Mori is cool, but a little bit of an anachronism to me because of a little bit. Read the Bones, Necronomicon. Maybe we'll do something like Necronomicon. Maybe we'll put that here. the Book of the Dead also appears in Sabriel, and I think there is a reference to that sort of thing in Wizard of Earthsea. So Necronomicon would be a cool thing. Moribund Purgatory. Purgatory is a little too tied to conventional, like heaven and hell death, and we're going way off. We're going like into a strange version of the realm of death. Ghoul Touch is cool. That sounds like something an evil necromancer would use. Let's throw that in here. Ghoul Touch. I like it. Bomb, Shallow Grave, maybe Corpse Blast. Corpse Blast is a little too MMO necromancer. Keening of the Dead, Enervate. Yeah, Earth Seal. I feel like Earth Seal is sort of like the same as we would be using Seal Soul. Wow, I'm being picky. I really like all of your ideas, though, but I'm like, we have to find stuff that's... Okay, Summon Dullahan. Who is Dullahan? Rigor Mortis. Yes, let me open to a random page and see if I can find an example of something. Charter Spelled... Anchoring yourself. There was a really powerful necromancer who was able to walk in death for extended amounts of time and actually did essentially a soul jar on himself where his body was hidden away somewhere. I don't want to like spoil this. I just told you all to read it. But there was a bit of a soul jar like effect. So we would say like maybe like anchor in death, soul jar. A cool spell like that where like an evil necromancer can sort of make themselves into an undead or a permanently undead creature where they can move between life and death. Oh yeah, we wanted to have like Walk in Death have a feature where it was like bring weak spirits back. You know, like bring like level 0 or 1 spirit back to its body. Something like that allows them to reroll their death timer, essentially. Yup. Can the necromancer be neutralized through silence? Yeah. They can. That is a thing that did happen in the books too. It did happen. Silence is very powerful. So do we need the necromancer to... I mean, silence is definitely bad for... yeah, soul transfer, yeah. Yes, that's a thing. Soul transfer. So we have a lot of... okay, so that definitely sounds 5th tier. We have a lot of, like, evil necromancer stuff at a high level, but, like, what would be something that, like, a good necromancer would be able to do at a super high level? What would be something, like if we're, like, let's, like, work backwards. So, like, from the ultimate effect. What would be, like, the most ultimate effect that a good necromancer would do? Probably something self-sacrificial, unfortunately. Maybe resurrection, but I'm so reluctant to put a resurrection effect in, but maybe a revivify effect. Like maybe that, like revivify. Bring back recently dead. Although we might have that be a feature in the Dwell in Death spell. So actually, maybe we'll put that here. Because the Dwell in Death spell is going to be like a way more powerful version of the Walk in Death spell. Like you can bring back a more powerful spirit if it has just died. Challenging to figure out how we'll actually finesse that into being, because it can't just be like an every time someone dies, I cast this and get your soul back. We'll probably have to make it like challenging and to spam. I'm just gonna make a note in here, like make this spam proof. This is how I write. I make notes to myself. We want to make it spam proof such that you can't just do this every time someone dies. Give good afterlife. I feel like the ultimate thing that a super powerful necromancer would do would probably be like banishing an undead without limit to its power. But the reason I worry about that is because then that kind of like upends campaigns where you're like, oh well, all the 10th level necromancer has to do is walk up to Mordanticus the Flayed and just be like, die, and then it's like, oh man, that was a letdown. And interestingly, like part of a necromancer, a good necromancer's take is like accepting death. It's not trying to unnaturally. I think they should have just like a mega turn undead, like mass turn undead, where they're just like boom and they just like kill a bunch of undead all at once or turn a bazillion of them. Because regular turn undead is like really good, but it can only target like a handful of creatures, right? It's actually, let me revisit how exactly turn undead works so that we can see if this is a viable upgrade here. So turn undead is all undead creatures within near must make a charisma check versus your spellcasting check. So I'm trying to decide, we might make it like a double near, and we might make it just harder to resist. Like a mass turn undead effect would be cool and very in keeping. So I don't know if you guys think that could work. Yeah, like return to death. Yeah, like yeah. Right, like mass later rest. Yeah, like a mass lay to rest effect. Yeah, and I think if it were just like increasing the range of later rest, it wouldn't be as exciting. Because later rest is already really good. Ooh, dust to dust sounds cool. Yeah, dust to dust. Harder to resist turn undead. I'm just making a note. We'll try to find the right blend between later rest and turn undead. Yeah, dust to dust is an awesome name. Who came up with that, I want to credit you. I think that by Rook or Crook, a lot of people said it kind of at the same time. Embrace death. Yeah, very, very cool. Ashes to ashes. That would be a cool spell too. Ooh, what if we make like a tier 4 spell that ashes to ashes? I don't know what that would be yet. But that is cool. I like that. That's cool. Coffin nails, eat corpse, ascendance, restore the cycle, grim fandango. Grim fandango. Ascendance does sound cool. Let's look at our general vibe for tier 4, okay? Because, again, we're bearing in mind that a necromancer could be good or bad. So we want to make sure we have options for each necromancer to choose how good or bad they want to be. Ooh, revenant is like that sounds cool. I'm just going to put that in here. Revenant. That just sound... Did I spell that wrong again? Is it revenant? I guess it is. Oh, no. Revenant. Help me. Revet. They don't know this word? Does it not know these words? Okay. Is this an actual word? It is a word. I spelled it right. Okay, so I guess just spell check doesn't know this word. Okay. So dance macabre, greatest sacrifice. Well, let me check quick that each tier has a good mix of good and bad necromancer opportunity here. Ashes to ashes sounds good to me. Fourth gate sounds more utility to me. Excoriate sounds bad. I like that. Vision sounds bad. Good. No, it actually sounds good, or a mix. Necronomicon, yeah. I think we have a mix. Like these 3 spells in particular seem like they could be used for good or for evil. And then I think we have an obviously good spell here and then an obviously bad spell here. So that's fine by me. And then third tier, drain life, definitely evil. Third gate, we'll see. I might make each of the gate spell have a very peculiar effect tied to its precinct, and so it's hard to say whether they'll each be super. They might be. Some of them might be more bad. Like a good necromancer would not cast third gate unless there was some particularly weird reason. For instance, summon undead. We have, yes, we do. Pestilence. That sounds cool. Yeah, what we're really missing is just a name. And I'm gonna also just like down here just cause. I don't want these to actually be bullets, so we're gonna just say these are oops, I don't know. Body text. Where are you, body text? I have way too many font styles. So I'm just gonna throw in a couple of the cool words in case we need a fallback option, because we need, some of our spells weren't working. People keep saying dance macabre. I mean, maybe. I mean, I'll put it down because that's, dance macabre. Is that how it was spelled, with an S on dance? Thriller. No fear ability. I don't know. Maybe a fear ability. Let me see if I just what's going on this page. Was there a spell being cast? No spell being cast here. Let's see. She gripped the spell and rang the orthodox backwards forwards in a figure 8 her father had taught her. The bell's voice rang out, singing a merry tune, a capering jig that almost had her feet jumping too, till she forced herself to be absolutely still. So she was trying to force a Mordot, a creature, to exit a body that it was possessing. Cool. Repel decay, become undead. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So become undead. I mean, undead, allying with the undead. Reap the soul is cool. Reap the soul. Maybe we'll put that as, okay, reap the soul. That sounds like a cool third tier. The third tier is where you throw in a couple bombastic spells, Yeah, summon undead maybe, or summon spirit. Summon undead. There's a bit of a you can summon a benevolent spirit to assist you in some brief way, whether it's to take an object to somebody or deliver a message. Create undead. We have Grave Embrace. I like it. It sounds a little bit like a play on words, which may or may not be okay. Mortiferous blade. Maybe hallowed ground. That could be. I'll write down. Ooh, wither mark sounds cool. Hallowed ground, wither mark. Let's grab a few more as fallback options. Bone golem. Maybe. I'd like to think of these as more folk undead, more of the ordinary. Not to say that undead are ordinary, but I don't foresee a necromancer summoning a bone naga. They could summon a white or a skeleton or a wraith or something a little bit more traditional. Contact ancestors, omen mark. Yeah. Level 1 damage spell. Have we not a level 1? Okay, yeah. Seal soul, first gate. Yeah, you're right. Lullaby, walk in death. So we'll make sure that this is damaging in some way. I'm going to put this here that it will have an option for being magical effect drawn from the first gate of death. Which actually, we could actually make first gate be the lullaby effect. Yeah, why don't we do that? Because that actually fits. Magical lullaby effect, which actually the first gate is named after, in this book, the god Rana, who lulls to sleep. So that leaves room for something as a tier 1 spell that could be more offensive, or buffing. Seal soul, walk in death, protection from evil, turn undead. This is all very passive, so we do need something aggressive. Maybe wither mark could go here. That sounds really cool. Yeah, and we'll make this offensive. offensive, not offensive, offensive. Umbra's cool. Ooh, Seance. Umbra. Bane. True. And so we may make more spells per tier, you know. Dance Macabre with an R. Oh yeah, sorry. Yep. Bone Burst, Gnashing Teeth. Awesome. Well, we have a lot of cool ideas for these. So, I think I try to keep these streams to about 2 hours just because I don't want anyone to suffer. And we actually have so much direction on what to do with these. This is a unique Necromancer who I think is very tied into the fabric of the game world in a way that seems to me a little bit less like the not to say that like the MMO style Necromancer is cartoony, but I think they're a little bit like overwrought, where it's like this like black cloaked person rolls into town with their like bone armor, and it's a little bit like, why would people not just immediately string them up and be like, evil Necromancer? So I like the idea that this Necromancer has opportunity to either be a folk hero or a folk villain. And some of their abilities line up quite a bit with the engaging with death itself, not just the undead. And that was important to me. Like, death itself is a thing that in the place of death. So, will this stream be available after? Yeah. This will go up after. And I feel like we should design for like another 20 minutes or so and try to refine some of our spell ideas, and then I can go off and try to finish creating these lists. Necromancy is shamanistic. I agree. I don't think necromancy's like classical like Clark Ashton Smith does some classical necromancy where it's like rise my skeletons, and you can do that with this Necromancer. Here's another thing. One of the core tenets of Shadowdark is preserving the action economy, aka the number of actions that you can take on your turn. And that's why we are very restrictive on the pets that we allow in this game. I don't want a Necromancer or any type of summoner type class to ever be able to just have like 50 skeletons that they can command. And so always hungry. A horse and bard equals fun. MMO Necromancer equals edgy. An interesting division. Well, so, final words. Maybe I'm gonna write it down. You know, final words could come into play. Zophique, right? I've never known if I said it right, but Zophique, the land where Clark Ashton Smith's stories are set. And he has depictions of really classical necromancers, of course. Glad to see we're building on Necromancer. Missed the start. Oh, hey, Brendan. Yeah, the start. We kind of lay out our influences and ideas, the places where I'm trying to pull from. Necromancer that can be unassuming. Yeah. A Necromancer, I think, is a form of a priest that has chosen a specialty that makes them more, like, people be afraid of them sometimes, but, like, in a folksy way. Like, they don't understand them, and they fear death. And so, I think that there's the potential here for a Necromancer to be a comfort and a guide to people, or to be a bane upon them. And we see that in the fiction. We see both types. Ghost Rider. I need that spell if I'm going to finish all my deadline. No, just kidding. I would never. I'm too fussy. As you guys have seen, I'm too picky. I have to write all my own stuff. And I have a hard time letting other people do that. There are other people who've written stuff that I've published, and that's awesome. And I will continue to do that. Bear and Drop, in fact. But I always like writing my own things just because I enjoy the process. So, Contact the Ferryman. Yeah, Column of Crows. There is a funny undead. There's like undead crows in a lot of stuff that I always thought was cool. Ghost March. I'll write that down because that's cool. Ghost March. That almost pulls from like Lord of the Rings in my opinion. Last Rites, if it wasn't said. We've kind of got that. We've kind of got a Seal the Soul spell. But yeah, Easter egg connection to Ghostlight. Maybe. Yeah, here's a question for you all. Here's a question. In your game worlds, is there more than one land of death? Like, is there, for instance, do the gods each have their own dead? Or is there like I wrote an adventure called Ghostlight where the undead sailors and stuff go. Someone just mentioned, should we work on talents? Probably. Why don't we work on talents? Because that would be something that we sort of, I don't want to totally neglect. So this will be interesting. I think that we should give the so I wanna reference the priest to make sure that we're sort of not going too hard in any one direction. And one thing I will note about the priest is that the priest's talents are constrained, like possibly the most constrained out of the core four's talent lists, as you can see here, because their spellcasting is so powerful already. So I think we want to make this a little bit constrained too, but we don't want to do it exactly the way that the priest does it. So firstly, I do want to put in the 7 and 9 spot a flexible option. So like we have this in the 10 to 11 spot on a priest actually, which is somewhat rare. I'm going to put this in the, let's put it into like, all right, so if we do like a 3 to 7 spot, 8 to 9 spot, 8, 9, that's like slightly, yeah, I think, okay, +2 to strength or charisma or +1 to necromancer. Spellcasting checks. That doesn't fit. That's okay, we'll figure it out. +2, so like +2 to strength or charisma stat. Well, actually, what if we were to identify the 3 stats pertinent to the necromancer? Yeah, what is the precedent for how I worded this in other places? So like we've got the priest, we've got the fighter, +2 to strength, dexterity, or constitution stat, for example. Let's just pretend that's what we're gonna use for the moment. I would say charisma for sure. Strength or dexterity? I don't know. I mean, I want to give, because like maybe constitution would be important, as you guys say. Strength, constitution, or charisma. Yeah, strength, constitution, charisma, because constitution can be drained, so they probably need a good con. They are somewhat of a combatant, mostly focused on melee, so I think choosing strength is better. I definitely want to give the opportunity for them to wield the scimitar, but that would be a more rare dex spec necromancer, meaning they have a higher AC, and so I think we don't need to allow them to raise their dex because that would be too much, in my opinion. So that. And then let's put the 3 to 7 spot being +1 to the necromancer spellcasting check, which is probably what they're going to roll most of the time. Oops. +1 to pre-spellcasting checks or +1 to melee attacks. I guess we'll let them choose. I don't ever see them choosing the melee attacks, but I think we gave the priest flexibility here and not so much here. And actually, priests don't often get stat boosts. It's like one of the few that it's very tough for them because I personally think that priests are the most powerful class. So, advantage to death timer. That could be a cool effect. Like, what if we make an effect? We kind of did this with the paladin. Advantage on 1 necromancer spell casting check. I might put that as the 10 to 11 spot. That would be cool. And then what would we put for a 2 spot? Like some kind of 2 is where we always put the like off the wall thing. Free casting. I fear it. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't put necromancer. Spell casting checks or +1 to melee attacks. I hate it that it doesn't fit. Why does this have to be such a long to your spell casting checks or +1 to melee attacks? I could say your. Under no situation would there be. I don't think that leaves it unclear. Necromancer familiar improvement to walk in death, maybe. Become death. Automatically stabilize. You know, I would almost consider that, except that I've seen that not be a thing in other necromancy. I mean, that's tough. I don't want to automatically, because then you can't die. 2, undead mount. All right. Oh, this is my opportunity to infuriate everybody. Undead mount. Learn augury. Learn another spell. Like, it could always be like learn an additional spell, but this is not that exciting. You know, like wizards get to make a magic item. Priests get advantage on a spell, which for them is massive. I almost fear to imagine a priest with advantage on cure wounds. Automatic stabilization. It makes them too hard to kill. Someone says I feel cocaine is needed here. Advantage to walk in death checks, maybe something along those lines. Yeah, like if we revisit what we were considering for walk in death, the thing is too that we have dwell in death, so like you no longer take constitution damage in the realm of death. That would that kind of doesn't work, because then that kind of removes the importance of the limitation. Treat your constitution score as 20 while walking in death. It's cool, but a little bit unexciting. It's cool. And plus, I have to say that anything over 10, which is what is average, is really long for duration. So, I mean, well, and then like that was like if the average, if the average of a D4 roll is 2.5, I mean, then you can still endure 4 rounds past your expiration time in death. And the average roll on it is, 9, which is like really long. So I don't think any wizards or necromancers are going to struggle to get out of death in time unless something like attacks them while they're in death, which should totally happen. Gain a spirit guide like a crow. Extra spell. I'm leaning towards extra spell, but I want it to be more fun than that. But extra spell. Yeah, permanent undead servant. That would probably not be something a good aligned necromancer would want. So undead skin. Yeah, necromancers are known for undead minions, but they can do that just through their spell casting already. A minion is a thing. Sabriel has a minion that was sort of foisted on her. And so did Ged, actually. They both had an animal minion. So a crow. Gain a crow minion. Gain a crow minion. We could maybe. Mogget is a cat. That was Sabriel's minion. He appeared to her as a cat. That wasn't the only shape he could take. And then Ged had his... like a ferret. I can't remember the poor thing's name. Corvid familiar. That could be cool. Let's do like a crow friend. Like a crow familiar. What would be the purpose? What would be the benefit of the familiar, though? Cannot be possessed by undead. That's kind of cool. Cheat death. Cheat death might be cool. Like, the next time you die, you instead return to life with 1 hit point. That actually is canon in both stories. I don't want to spoil it, but that's canon. Is it like not exciting enough? It's like a one-time like extra life, basically. The cheat death thing, second chance. It's a second chance, essentially. Yeah. Do you guys like that one? And the next time you die, return to life with 1 hit point. let's do it. I think it's cool, and actually, interestingly enough, you will see that that might be relevant to the source material we're pulling from if you read them. I mean, I'm not saying who or when, but seems not good enough. Well, yeah, but it is cool. You know, it is cool. It's not like a permanent effect. Should we say once per level when you die? I mean, that seems like a lot. Yeah. Cheat death. It should be once a day. One time only, not a fan. Wait, one time only, comma, not a fan. Should it be like a one time only thing, or should it be like a once per level thing? It is a huge deal. Cheating death is a huge deal. I don't like things that may never come up. Oh, it'll come up in this game. Return to life with full HP? Full HP. One is a little bit like, should we say with full hit points? Hit points. Because, you don't, like, return to life with one is kind of like the orc standing over you that just killed you, sees you, and is like, you alive? Buh, and then just hits you again, you know? So, once per level, one time only, one per time rolled snake eyes. And let's leave it like this for now. Let's leave it as a one-time thing. It's not a permanent thing, but like, what other class is allowed to die once and then come back? I don't know of any. Make it cost a luck token, no spamming, but just one time. Well, then it's almost like why need like, I don't want to discourage a necromancer with this from using their luck token. So, once only with full HP. That should be a tier 4 spell. Ooh, that'd be scary. Make it so you have a luck token and you have to sacrifice it to come back. Well, I don't think we need to. If you get full HP, I'd make it once per level. Well, it used to be just 1 HP and once per roll of it. And you can roll it more than once. And actually, if you roll a 12, you can choose it. Once per even level. I don't want to overdo it on it, though, because death has to matter. What we'll do, let's think on this one. This is the kind of thing that I think we need to sleep on. Once a year. To put this in perspective, Ged and Sabriel both had to use this power once ever. They were only able to use it once ever. And it was understood that they would only be able to use it once ever. So let's leave it. Let's sleep on it. And what I'll do is I would love you guys to sleep on it too, and then come back and leave a comment saying if you feel your opinion has changed or if you feel you would like to see it done differently. Yeah, normally, I mean, if you come back from death, you lose HP permanently. Well, I don't think we need to be that punitive. I think we can make it, like, really great, you know, because this is a 2-spot roll. And, yeah, I think we'll just leave it as it is. So, the next time you die, return to life with full hit points. You didn't have to die this time. Cool. Yeah, and it needs to fit in one line, and I think adding any downside to it is sort of like unneeded, you know. It should be cool. It should be a neat and empowering effect, you know. You only get to use it the one time, so cool. So leave your thoughts in the comments if you come back to this and you have any other insights about the design. And we have a great list of ideas for spells. Right here, we have a very thematic take on this class that matches our source material, which to me is always very important. Yes, and the primary source material was Sabriel by Garth Nix, and the other source material was the Wizard of Earthsea series by Ursula K. Le Guin. Both wonderful reads and series, so if you like them, you can continue reading them. And I think we'll say we'll call our stream at that spot. We went for 2 hours. It went by in a snap, but you guys need to eat lunch, and so do I, and think about how we'll take this design out further. I will release a final test version of this and the Paladin. Paladin's actually pretty much ready to go for testing. I made one other tweak to it that since the last time you guys might have seen it in the Discord server, I had given it crossbow access, and then I took that away again because that is so unpaladin like. So okay, and you all, thank you so much for being part of this and voting and letting us do something a little off the wall and cool and Shadowdarky and inspired by source material rather than just trying to stick in line with the tropes that are overtrodden for necromancers this time. So you all, thanks. Thank you. This is our last Western Reaches stream, but not our last stream ever. So stick around and I will catch you all on whatever is surely our next one. All right? Thanks, you guys. See ya.